Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show, where we're on our Friday edition. We're here Wednesday through Sunday, 8 to 10, and today we're going to have a really big football Friday preview for you all. We got some special guests coming up, and I'm Mac, and that's my co-host Jack, and welcome to the show, everybody. You can find us at Facebook, Mac Sports page, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. Like, follow, and subscribe where you can. And Jack, how are you doing today, my friend?
Hey, doing great. Had a great show yesterday. We'll have a great one today, and the weekend is here. So sports is really a lot of great things are going on.
Yes, sir. And today we have three big guests for us. The first one up is Capaccio. He's the Buffalo Bills sideline reporter for WGR Radio. And he also has his own podcast called Styles Sports and Stuff, very popular in Buffalo, and we're glad to have him. And welcome to the show, Sal.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me, man.
Hi, Sal.
So, Sal, on our show, we cover all local sports, the tri-state with the New York Giants, Jets. We do the Patriots, and we're glad to have you aboard to represent Buffalo. And I want to get to some of the big Buffalo stories or sidelines here. And with Buffalo, the last game they had was a little tough. I mean, they're off to a great start, 4-1. They did lose big to the Titans. Do you think, Sal, that was just like a hiccup? You know, every team has that one bad game. Do you think that was just a hiccup, or is that showing people that the Bills aren't up on that level with, you know, the Ravens, the Chiefs, and the Titans?
No, you look. I think it's the NFL, right? Anybody can beat anybody. We know that. There was a lot of things that happened last week. On Saturday last week, the Bills had no idea who their next opponent would be or when they'd even be playing because of all the COVID situation with Tennessee. That game was originally supposed to be played on Sunday. They moved it to Tuesday night. The game was supposed to be played last night against the Kansas City Chiefs and now being played Monday. There were a lot of issues. And then on top of that, the Bills were without, I would say, 5 really key players for them, including their starting all-pro cornerback, Tre'Davious White, which really forced a couple other guys. Josh Norman had to become their number one corner. That's not his role. And opposite him, they had a kid that had never played an NFL snap on defense, and Cam Lewis, who had to be their number 2 corner. They were missing John Brown on offense, really could not stretch the field without having that speed. And I think the Titans did a great job of understanding that and really keeping everything underneath, forcing the Bills to kind of get out of their game plan. The Bills love to attack. They love to stretch the field. They weren't able to do that. They had to stay underneath. They had to stay short. They had to be patient. And then they made some mistakes. The Titans played a very good game. Let's give them a lot of credit. They had a lot of challenges last week too, but it's the NFL. I mean, games like this happen once in a while. The Bills last year, they got blown out pretty bad by the Philadelphia Eagles here at home in Buffalo. And, they still won 10 games and made it to the playoffs. And I think the Bills are right up there with teams like Kansas City, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Tennessee. But we'll find out more. They do have Kansas City coming up here on Monday.
You mentioned Josh Norman. He struggled a bit against Tennessee, a couple of penalties that kept drives going. At least from my viewpoint, he slowed down a step from being the elite defender he was with the Panthers and Washington. Is that so? Is he the same player or has he lost a step?
Well, I think it's safe to say he's not the same player he was in Carolina, right? I mean, that was a while ago. That was a good 5 years ago when he was really the excellent player he was. But he goes to Washington. He struggles there. But, Washington asked him to do something he shouldn't be doing, which is play more man-to-man, be their number one guy. He's a zone coverage guy. And that's why the Bills signed him. He played with Sean McDermott in Carolina. This is his system. This is the scheme that they felt was really good for him. And then he comes to Buffalo and he gets hurt in training camp right away. He's on IR for 3 weeks. He just started playing. His last game was a week and a half ago, for the Bills. He just played only 2 games. I would say, he's not going to be what he was in Carolina. That's for sure. I also think that he was asked to do something here last week that he shouldn't be asked to be doing. He is not going to be your number one corner. And if you're asking him to do that, you're in trouble. He's a complementary piece to Tre'Davious White. He's more of a zone guy, and I think the Bills hope for that. But there are some concerns, no doubt about it. He didn't have a good game. You hope that he could still get back to at least something like the level he was in Carolina at times when he was with Sean McDermott. But, there's some concerns right there, but I think the Bills are going to work through it and see, where they can go with this.
Well, it's interesting. He got into it with Odell Beckham Jr. when he was with Washington because Odell said he was a zone coverage type guy, and Josh Norman took pride in being able to guard a guy man to man. So it's kind of revealing what you said.
Well, yeah. That's why the Bills signed him. They Bills are a heavy zone team. They play a lot. They mix. I mean, they're not going to shy away from man to man. But that is his natural fit, and I'm not saying he can't play man to man, but he's certainly, especially at this stage of his career, he's a better zone corner.
Well, talking about defense, Sal, the Bills' defense has been the last couple of years one of the toughest defenses in the league. Have they fallen off any? I mean, they gave up a lot of points twice this year. Once I think it was against the Rams, if I'm correct, and then again against the Titans. Have they got a little bit weaker this year? They still got a good defense, but are they as strong as they were last year?
No, I mean they haven't. The numbers have shown that they obviously have some cracks in the armor right now. But you guys look around the league, look what's happening. It looks like offenses are ruling the day, and this league is on pace to have right now. They're more points scored than ever before through 5 weeks of a season, and it's defenses are down across the board. Offenses are up. That's not an excuse for the Bills. They do take pride in what Sean McDermott and Leslie Frazier have built here for the last 3 years. They have been one of the best units in the league, and they have struggled at times this year. They're struggling to get off the field on third down sometimes. They're not generating a pass rush as much as they'd like, especially with their front four. That's a big deal. But I do believe they have very good defensive coaches in Sean McDermott and Leslie Frazier. I think they'll figure it out as much as they can. Going forward, they should be able to. But they also are facing some pretty good teams. They face the Rams offense, the Raiders offense. The Chiefs are coming into town. These are teams that can be explosive. So I do think that they've taken a step back, but I don't think it's necessarily something to be completely panicking about at this point, considering what's happening around the league and the fact that, there's some time here to see if they can straighten some things out.
And they haven't made as conscious an effort to run the ball, it seems, the way they did last year. And Josh Allen has really stepped it up. He's improved a bit. It seems he looks like he's going to become the quarterback they hope he was going to become, even though he's a bit erratic with some of the passes he throws. But they're only 21st in rushing attempts. Is it a conscious effort not to run the ball? Is it because of the personnel or what?
Yeah, I mean, they've really become a throwing football team. This is a team that, for the last 20 years in Buffalo, we've been run the ball, play defense, run the ball, play defense. Yeah. This is a change in mindset completely from what we're used to with this organization. And it's a great one because it hasn't been just a bit that Josh Allen's improved. He's in the conversation for MVP of the league right now. I mean, he's taken incredible leaps. Guys, I mean, I did a stat the other day. It's incredible when I thought about it. Josh Allen, up until last week's game, he had played 32 NFL games. So that's basically 2 seasons. I mean, not linear. It wasn't his one season, his second season, but he played 32 NFL games. His first 16, which would be one season, he had 13 touchdowns and 18 interceptions. His second 16, he had 29 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. You talk about a leap. I mean, that's an incredible leap. He is now becoming the franchise quarterback they all thought he would be when they drafted him. And because of that, and because of getting Stephon Diggs in the offseason and what that could do for your receiving core, they drafted Gabriel Davis, a really good rookie. They're able to spread the field. They're able to attack, and they really want to be. That's their identity now. So, but when they do run the ball, they have struggled, and they should be better at that. I think they're missing a bit of an element to a power running game. Zach Moss has been injured, a rookie who I think can bring a little bit of that. He hasn't been on the field. And the Bills don't run a lot of power stuff. They're really a team that relies on misdirection, getting to the edge, a lot of zone stuff, and a lot of read stuff in the run game. They got to be better at it. There's no doubt. But they're not going to switch identities to, I think they're fine with being 20 whatever in the league in rushing attempts because they're putting the ball in Josh Allen's hands right now, and he's winning games for them.
Yes, Sal. Let's talk about the AFC East for a minute. The AFC East, of course, the Jets are pretty much out of the conversation. I mean, I think Adam Gase has lost that locker room, and they're in a lot of trouble. But the Patriots picking up Cam Newton, they're playing pretty good. Well, they always play good ball anyway. And Miami seems to be improving. They had a big win last week. Is this the opening the Bills have been waiting for to maybe take control of the AFC East?
Yeah, I think the opening really started last year a little bit. The Bills played the Patriots twice last year, and out of the 8 quarters, for 7 of them, the Bills really beat them, but the Patriots wound up winning both games. Once because they blocked the punt and won 10-6 on a touchdown. And then in New England, the Bills were winning in the fourth quarter on a Saturday evening in December, and the Patriots came back and they won that game. And I think it really kind of started to open right there. And you could see where the Bills were on an ascension and the Patriots might have been on a little bit of a decline. And we saw that in the playoffs, and we saw that Brady just wasn't the same Tom Brady. And of course, he's gone now. There's been a bit of a transformation in New England, and the Bills really have made that ascension, and they've continued to. And I think right now, this is it. This is the time that the Bills feel that they have to strike. And I don't put it past at all General Manager Brandon Beane having that in his mind when he traded for Stephon Diggs. I don't think that's a move you make if you think you're going to finish 3rd in your division. But if you think you have a chance to win your division, go to the playoffs, and make a run, you trade a first-round pick for a guy like Stephon Diggs, who's been everything they thought he would be when they did it. It is absolutely right now on the table for the Bills to win their first division title, guys, since 1995. What were you doing in 1995? Because that's the last time the Buffalo Bills actually won the AFC East, which is pretty incredible to think about. As far as Miami, look, I mean, I think they've done some nice things. I like Brian Flores as a coach. I really do. I think they brought in some good talent. But they're also kind of caught in this spot where we know the quarterback, Ryan Fitzpatrick, isn't the future quarterback. They're going to go to Tua at some point. And when they do that, you probably think that there's going to be maybe a step back before they get better. So I think they're in a very interesting spot where they're going to try and keep winning, but I don't know if they can win enough to make the playoffs. And at the same time, they might be better served by playing the young guy, but the young guy might not let them win enough right now.
Now, straighten me out on this. The Bills were finalists for Le'Veon Bell, okay, along with the Dolphins and the Chiefs. And obviously they need a running back. And had he gone to Buffalo, there's a good chance he would have been their number 1 running back, as soon as he got into form. Why not give up a low-round draft choice for him?
Well, he's not. He was a free agent.
Well, no, they could have made
before that, because then you have to take on that contract, and there's no way anybody's going to want to do that. The reason he wasn't traded is because his contract would go with him, and he would still be owed like $6 million. So there's no way any team's going to do that right now, especially not knowing. You wait till he gets cut, and then you sign him to a deal that you can much better afford, especially with the salary cap that's going to be going down next year, and we know how much money teams don't have as much this year and things like that. So there's an easy reason why you don't trade for him. No team would, considering the contract situation you'd have to take on. But the other thing is, I'm not so sure he'd come in and be the number 1 running back right away. Look, Devin Singletary is a good running back. He did some nice things last year. The Bills are struggling right now, but they also firmly believe, and there's not a bell cow guy. Le'Veon Bell would have really helped the Bills. There's no doubt, but he would help them in the passing game. And he's not going to come into Buffalo and get 20 carries a game. That's just what we talked about earlier. You're not going to do that because you're throwing the ball so well with Josh Allen. I don't know if they necessarily need a running back. It would have been nice if you ever get a guy like Le'Veon Bell. That's great. But I think the Bills like what they have in Devin Singletary. I think there's some issues up front on the offensive line that are contributing to the running game and not being able to do what they can. But I don't think it's something that they actually needed to do, but it would have helped them, no doubt.
That's a good point. Very good point. Again, back to the Patriots-Bills rivalry. I mean, Bill Belichick, you don't have to say anything about the man. The man is probably arguably the best coach in NFL history. Unbelievable game planner, great defensive coordinator, great with his special teams. I think, in my opinion, I don't know, Sal, but I think the most important step for the Bills this year is to win the AFC East. I mean, I don't know how they'll do in the playoffs. I would imagine that they're going to get to the playoffs this year. It looks that way. But I believe that if they beat the Patriots this year, would you consider, for the first place, would you consider that a win for them this year?
They have to win a playoff game, guys. I think that's the next step. They've made the playoffs 2 of the last 3 years and lost in the first round. So even if they were to win the division, if they were to lose in the first round, I don't think Bills fans would be satisfied or happy with that. I think people would say they did not take the next step. The next step is winning a playoff game for this organization. And even if they don't win the division, if they win a playoff game, I think that's taking the next step. That's the more important thing. But And I think the Bills have really approached this the right way. All that said, Brandon Beane, their general manager, even said to us, look, our goal is to win the division because that gives us a much better chance to win a playoff game because then we're at home. But they want to win a playoff game. They want to get to the next step. They want to go deep in the playoffs. Getting the division championship would be a huge step. It would obviously be monumental for this organization from where they were and where they've been for the last 25 years. But what that does is that gets you a home playoff game. And we all know that nobody wants to come to Orchard Park in January and play football against the Buffalo Bills. And that's why they feel it's so important because that would really get them to their next step, which is winning a playoff game. They had the Houston Texans dead to rights last year in Houston in the wild card, And the Bills fell apart, let's face it, in the second half. And that game still haunts this organization, and they believe that the next step has to be winning that playoff game.
Did they change their philosophy on offense or defense based on that loss to Houston, which, as you said, they really let that game get away?
They did. I think a couple things happened there, Jack. It was really obvious that they did need a wide receiver who could make some contested catches. Duke Williams, I like him a lot. He really works his tail off. He was in the CFL. He's leading receiver. He was their biggest wide receiver who go up and try and make those types of catches. They had John Brown, a nice player, and Cole Beasley, a nice player, but they needed that guy. And he was targeted a few times in that game. He didn't come down with a few crucial catches. So that's why I think they really had their mindset of, we got to get a guy, and they did. And Stephon Diggs has been amazing. Yeah. He's the guy. That's the change, I think, in philosophy you saw. But the other part was just the growth in Josh Allen, the offensive philosophy of, hey, you know what? We're gonna win by throwing the ball with this kid. We're gonna put the ball in his hands. Yes, he fumbles too much. We know that he's had some ball security issues in that regard. But the way this kid is an athlete, and he can run and he can throw and he can do all those things, we're gonna make him the focal point of our offense. And then the other part is, not on defense, but special teams. They drafted a kicker. There's a reason they drafted a kicker. And I believe a lot of it had to do with that playoff game, which is they were in position to possibly win, but they didn't believe Stephen Hauschka had the leg to kick a really long field goal. They drafted Tyler Bass, who has a monster leg. He's the kicker now. And I think that they specifically went out and wanted to get a bigger legged kicker because of what happened in that Houston game, and knowing that they really didn't want to take a shot to try and win the game late with a really long field goal because they didn't have the kicker to do it.
Sal, I got to tell you something funny with the Buffalo Bill kicker. In the early 1970s, the Bills had to kick a Booth Lustig.
Yep.
Worst kick I ever saw. I remember he attempted a 34-yard field goal. 34 yards, it was 5 yards short. Okay.
Wow, listen, we have a history with kickers here in Buffalo.
Yes,
I know what happened. All right, we don't need to go down that road. You guys are in New York. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes, sir.
All right, but the Bills have had. Remember, they've had some punters and kickers. Pete Gogolak, Paul McGuire, punter and linebacker. The Bills have had some interesting punters and kickers over the years.
Well, we had a debate on fan loyalty, Mac and myself, and I got to say, the Buffalo Bill fans might really be the best fans in the world. The way they cheered Scott Norwood, after he missed the field goal. I mean, how many fans would have done that? That was heartwarming.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Buffalo has an unbelievable fan base. I mean, I'm a member of Bills Mafia, and the fans there are unbelievable. The following they get. I like to look forward to the next game against Kansas City with you real quick, Sal. Kansas City, I think the Patriots kind of exposed their offense a little bit by not blitzing Patrick Mahomes, just rushing their front. And they really had that game won at the end of the game, if not for some bad mistakes by the Patriots. And then the Raiders come in, and they basically follow the same thing. They're not blitzing. They're kind of playing zone coverage, making Patrick Mahomes beat the zone instead of the blitz coming and him getting that hot receiver. Do you think the Bills will do the same thing against them?
Yeah, the Raiders had a great game plan. It worked out. I don't know if the Bills can do it. The Bills have to be able to generate pressure with their front four, and they just haven't been able to do that as much this year. That is the way to do it, and the Bills are going to try to do it. I just don't know if they can do it. They're going to really have to do what they can to get him off his spot, and then have guys, 7 guys in coverage, basically, if you can get there and have him move and only have to read one side of the field because he's rolling or something like that. That is the game plan. So I don't know if the Bills can do it, but they're going to try. That's for sure. Having Tre'Davious White back, and hopefully that is the case, obviously would really help the defense. Matt Milano, he's a fantastic linebacker, guys. He missed last week as well. He's dealing with a pec injury. Both guys did practice yesterday in a limited fashion, so we'll see. And they do have another extra day here to get ready and get rested because the game is on Monday. And on the offensive side, John Brown, if he can play, that would help, because we saw what the Raiders did by going over the top of that Kansas City defense and attacking them. And that is what the Bills want to do, and they're pretty good at.
So, Jack, if you don't have any more, do you have any more questions for Sal, Jack?
No, that's pretty much. I'm looking forward to the game against the Chiefs.
Oh, me too. And
coming off a loss.
Yeah, it's a Monday at 5 p.m. here in Orchard Park. So people are get the bell and whistle out from work.
Don't be so certain the game's going to come off in this day and age.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
Delay.
I know.
And Sal, I wanted to make a pointed effort to get the Bills on here, because in New York they're the forgotten team, and they shouldn't be. The Bills have a great history, and they have a great team this year. And I really believe that New York should pay more attention to the Bills. and maybe a little less attention to the Jets and Giants this year. But I mean, hopefully both of those teams get back on track again. And we go ahead. So.
It would make sense because it is the only New York team. I mean, the only team in New York. So New York should pay attention because the Jets and Giants, they aren't in New York. And that's a big thing we always say in Buffalo when everybody talks about, we say, no.
That's very unusual. We show city loyalty, but we don't show state loyalty. The people in New York City, the Bills may as well be the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean,
but it's New York State. People in New York City think Buffalo's in Canada, so I get it. You know what I mean? It is, by the way. I mean, I'm doing this with you guys today, and I live in the city in Buffalo, and I'm not kidding when I tell you this way, right in front of me, it's about 1.5 miles, and it is Canada. So I am right here.
Very true. Very true. So Sal, I want to thank you for coming on. Hopefully we can get you back on. It's great having a professional like you on and coming on our show. And we were very happy to have you on. Thank you very much for coming on, Sal.
Mac and Jack, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on. You guys have a great weekend.
Thanks.
You too, sir.
Okay.
Take care, Sal. So that was Sal Capaccio. I mean, you can't get no better than that, Jack. A great reporter, has his own podcast, very, very well known, very, very much liked, and I was very happy to get him on, and hopefully we can get him as a regular on here. Very, very
great
knowledgeable.
Buffalo Bills stuff. You're not going to get better Buffalo Bills stuff anywhere else. You could turn to ESPN, Fox, put on your TV, Google stuff. He's telling you things right from the inside. So if you're interested in the Buffalo Bills, you should be because they're a Super Bowl contender. I mean, great stuff.
Okay. Yeah, so like I said, I saw him and I saw his show and I saw he had a great he had a great story there, and hopefully we can hear it about a mistaken identity when he was on ESPN. It's a very funny story, and we'll get it back on. I'll have him go into that a little bit.
But you like what I said about Booth Lustig, the old
Buffalo
Bill kicker? If you ask me, the worst kick I ever saw was Booth Lustig. He might be a lovely man. I'm not saying he wasn't. But the one area of football in which the modern player has improved tremendously is the field goal kickers.
That's a good point.
Many years ago, a 50-yard field goal, would be considered a monster kick.
Right.
So if a kicker would line up and miss a 48-yarder, you would condone it. You'd say, wow, that's just too long of a kick. Now, if a guy misses a 50-yarder, you might cut him from the team.
Yes, very true.
On a regular basis are kicking over 50 yards. I mean, you see guys lining up kicking 55, 56 yards. I mean, the leg strength has become so superior to what it was years ago. I give the Booth Lustig example. A 34-yard field goal, 5 yards short. I don't want to hear that there may have been some wind or whatever, or the circumstance, but the leg on the kickers today is absolutely phenomenal.
It really is. And I like the way Sal brought up Pete Gogolak. There's a name from the past. Giants kicker. Him and his brother were one of the first 2 soccer-style kickers in the history of football. And I'm not sure if it was Joe Gogolak. I'm trying to remember his brother's name. And the Gogolak brothers were on, and Charlie Gogolak was his name. And they both were the first brother kicking team in the NFL. Of course, Pete Gogolak kicked for the New York Giants, and Charlie kicked for the then Boston. I think the Boston Patriots they were called then. So very interesting. He brought that name up.
Talking about the Bills playing the Chiefs this week. The Chiefs had a phenomenal soccer-style kicker during the 70s, Jan Stenerud.
Yeah. Okay? He pretty much won that Super Bowl against the Vikings, kicking, I think it was like 5 field goals.
They won 23-7. He had 3 field goals. They would have won anyway, but his kicking, gave him that cushion.
No doubt. I mean, as you said, great soccer-style kicker. So up next, we're going to have Byron Williams is scheduled to come in at 8:30. We'll talk a little bit about the Giants and the NFL overall, since he's our NFL audience analyst. And so we'll have him coming up at 8:30, Jack. So let's get real quick into some of the stories with the Major League Baseball, Jack. The Astros stayed alive. I mean, they came back. Correa hits that home run, and the Astros are. It's now what is it? It's Tampa at 3, Astros 2. So we'll see. I mean, I think there's a chance, Jack, if they win Game 6. I mean, who knows? They may have a shot.
Listen, I thought the Rays would sweep them, or maybe it would go 5. I was surprised yesterday. I thought the Rays were going to close them out, and anything could happen in the Game 7. I'll tell you. So if Houston wins Game 6 in Tampa Bay, for the first time, they have to be feeling the pressure now, because as long as you have a cushion and you're ahead and you're not facing elimination, you could relax. You could see the finish line in sight. But if they're losing, it's 3-3, and they're facing one of the biggest collapses in baseball history, it's going to be like, really, wow.
Oh, I agree, Jack. And the Braves, they did it again, Jack. Their pitching held them down. They exploded. Let me make sure I got this in the 6th inning. They had a 6-run 6th inning. And the Dodgers only had 3 hits last night, Jack. Good pitching.
There's something about Clayton Kershaw. Clayton Kershaw, you can argue, is one of the greatest pitchers in baseball history. But when you look at what he's done in the postseason, how do you rate him as such?
Yeah.
And over the postseason, if he was a mere mortal, and you look at his numbers, you could say he's been okay. But a great pitcher, his performance in the postseason has to match that of the regular season to come close to that. And what Clayton Kershaw's done this postseason basically has mirrored what he's done his whole career. Now, Clayton Kershaw, against the Milwaukee Brewers, he was masterful, okay? Shutting them out, so on. He pitched 8 innings or so. He was great the first round of the playoffs. The second round of the playoffs, he won again against San Diego, but was a bit shaky, but did enough to win the game. But this game, where they really needed him, down 2-1, it all fell apart in the 6th inning for him. And it's one thing if you pitch 7, 8 innings and they take you out and you're down 2-0 or 3-1. But Clayton Kershaw basically was knocked out of the game in the 6th inning.
Yes, sir, Jack.
Great pitchers have to pitch great in big games. And Clayton Kershaw has had a ton of postseason appearances, and I've wanted badly for him to do well. And every time he has a good game or two, he loses in a very big spot. And there's a reason the Dodgers haven't won a World Series since 1988, or at least until Clayton Kershaw, became a major leaguer, because he doesn't come through in big spots. Now, I don't buy the thing that he chokes or whatever. I don't know the reason why, okay? But you can't give a guy a pass after a while. You just, can't do it. You got to get the job done. Now, I could look at his stats. I could examine him carefully, and I could say he's been okay compared to the average pitcher. But Clayton Kershaw is an all-time great in the regular season. So at the very least, he's got to be very good in the postseason. And, it just hasn't happened. I'm frustrated here talking. Really frustrated. And the Dodgers are down 3-1, Mac.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. And
for the best team in baseball, if they don't win the World Series this year and then they're on the verge of being eliminated, when on earth are they ever going to win it?
I agree with you 100%, Jack. We have Byron Williams coming up right now. He's backstage. We're going to bring him on screen with the NFL report. So how you doing today, Byron? Great to see you.
Hey, Byron.
Hey,
you join us just in time as we're talking baseball. You could chime in. Dodgers, you said, right?
Hey, we have baseball right here in Arlington.
That's true. Very true. Houston stayed alive. Yeah. Stayed alive last night with that walk-off home run. So they're still in it, Byron.
Yeah, it's a good series. So that's good.
Yes, it is. So let's get to football, Byron. That's why we got your knowledge and all your savvy here for football. And you being a former Giant receiver, I want to start off with the Giants real quick. They're going up against Washington. This is a game that I think they should win and kind of must win to get their season somewhat back on track, or at least to make a statement. If they don't beat Washington, is that really it for the season, Byron? I mean, is this what the team is going to be? There's no shot at them maybe having, a 6-10, 7-9 season if they lose Sunday.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a key week for them. I mean, they really played a pretty good football this season. Just that the little things have happened for them, but I think this will be their first win. I think they are going to be excited. I think they're going to be fired up. They've been in almost every game, been very competitive. So I'm excited. I think the Giants will win 24 to 20, 24 to something like that this week, and I think everybody in New York going to be excited to see the Giants win their first game for the.
They would have been more excited had they seen the Giants beat the Cowboys. And I'm going to tell you, it was frustrating to see 2 touchdowns called back, especially the first one on the fake field goal. Joe Judge was going ballistic. And I'm not involved, and I was going crazy because on a fake field goal, you can only try that once or twice a year and get away with it.
Right.
And they executed it perfectly. They caught the Cowboys napping. It was beautiful, and only because one of the players wouldn't get down on the stance. Basic fundamentals. What do you do with a guy like that when a touchdown is called back? Unless he's a star player, how do you deal with it? You don't want to cut a guy, but that's completely unacceptable.
Yeah, he should have been in his position and stay still. But it was a real picky penalty. I think the referee 90% of the time they wouldn't call that because to me the guy was really set right before when the ball was snapped. It was really a picky penalty. I think the referees was from definitely a Dallas Cowboy fan, and
you're joking.
I think it was a touchdown.
Yeah, I agree, Byron. And let's talk a little bit about the roster. We always have, it seems, some key players hurt every year. I don't know. I mean, Barkley's out this year for the whole year. Our wide receiver who just got signed a big bonus is out again. I mean, what kind of moves do you think the Giants are going to make, if any? I mean, they want to sign Barkley, I would imagine, but are you going to give him a big contract? And I know Shepard is one concussion away from retirement pretty much, and he seems to be always hurt. These both are very dynamic players, but, they're not on the field. So what do the Giants do with these two this year?
Well, for one, you got to continue to build your team around Barkley, no doubt. He's still in the prime, but the receivers, not being a receiver, they come a dime a dozen. I think you can find receivers a lot. There's a lot of receivers on these practice rosters that got some experiences. Coleman was a receiver I thought could come in and do something this year. They grew up here in Dallas. That was at Baylor. We talked about him early in the season, but he didn't make out. But receivers and the injuries with the NFL, you got to have multiple contacts of players coming in quite a bit. I mean, Coach Bill Parcells, and I hate to keep bringing up Bill Parcells, but what they did was he had a good deal of managing players, bring them in on a Tuesday on that day off, and having a list of players that they want to work with and build their team around, and you have to do that.
So Byron,
Yeah, go ahead, Matt.
Jack, let me just follow up on that real quick. So Barkley comes up on a contract. The Giants, I don't think, are going to offer him McCaffrey money. We see what happened with McCaffrey. He's out for the season. Davis is running the ball real good for the Panthers. And Shepard, I mean, are we going to see maybe the Giants lose Barkley because of this? Or are we going to see Shepard maybe I'm not going to say cut, but, I mean, I don't know what to do with him. So, again, what do you think they should be doing with that? Situation.
The free agent market is so tough in the NFL now. It's just like they lost Collins. He was one of the best safety when they lost him. But I just think, you have to have a marquee player like Barkley on your team to continue to build. Now having these knee reconstructions and knee surgeries and stuff is not like it was 10 years ago. So I think he's still going to be a marquee player. I think he'll be a top 5 running back in the NFL. So I think you have to figure out a way to sign him with some bonuses and stuff like that. But you have to build your team around players like Barkley. You don't get them every day.
Yeah.
No, the Giants are playing Washington this week, and before the season started, people were whispering, well, Daniel Jones against Dwayne Haskins. Yeah. We could compare the progress of both quarterbacks because it was a little controversial. The Giants taking Daniel Jones 6th overall when a lot of people thought they'd take Dwayne Haskins in that spot. What's happened to Dwayne Haskins? I mean, he's fell off the radar to the point you wonder who's going to pick him up. Some team will pick him up, but he might just be a practice squad player like Josh Rosen in the beginning and might have to work his way back. I mean, what exactly happened there?
I think you have to put these quarterbacks in the right offensive, and you have to have the right chemistry. I think it seems like to me his confidence is not where it was coming out of Ohio State. And when you lose, that's another component that really get the players down. So I think his morale is not where it used to be. I think it's a lot of pressure in some of these cities like Washington and New York. It takes some tough skin to play in those cities like that. And the media, sometimes when you get to reading too much media, it can mess you up. And of course, it's just one of those things to where he's not quite mature enough to handle some of the things. And also these offenses have to be simplified with some of these players because they're not able to pick up some of the blitzes from the defense and things like that. So I think he still have a learning curve that he have to adjust to play in the NFL.
Byron, let's talk about the Jets a little bit. I mean, Darnold's out, Flacco's starting, Le'Veon Bell's gone. At the improving Dolphins, who look like they're putting together a decent team over there right now. Did the Jets get their first win this week, Byron?
No.
Okay, all right.
Miami gonna probably be a couple of touchdowns better because I think Miami just been playing with this new spirit of excitement. You can see it in the players. I mean, they went to 49ers last week. They went over there and had a hell of a game, 40-some points they put up. So it's gonna be really tough for the Jets. I just think the Jets, they got to continue to play hard. But I feel sorry for the fans because the fans deserve so much better they have some of the most loyal fans in the National Football League. But they have to find a way to be competitive. And you can say the Giants are very competitive, but the Jets right now is not playing good football at all. I mean, and then next thing you know, you cutting one of your star players. But of course, right now they're looking at chemically changing the whole makeup of the team right now. That's what they're doing. They're getting in a position to find some players that they'll be able to build their team around coming out of college. You can tell right now that's what they're doing.
A good backup quarterback is invaluable, as we saw with the Cowboys with Andy Dalton coming off the bench. I mean, he's not Dak Prescott, but you put the right pieces and the right game plan around them, they can win with Andy Dalton. You wonder when Cam Newton was available, the Jets never made an effort to pick him up. Why are teams like that with a young quarterback who they think is their franchise quarterback? Do they think he's so fragile mentally that if he has a couple of bad games, the fans are going to be starting to call for the established quarterback like Cam Newton, or worse yet, inside the locker room, the veterans are going to want to know why Cam isn't in there, instead of their young quarterback. Because in all due respect to Joe Flacco, okay, he's not the same player he was when he led the Ravens to the Super Bowl. And no one is going to call for Joe Flacco to replace Sam Darnold, as the full-time quarterback, when they may have done it with Cam Newton. So why do teams do it? Is it because the quarterback is fragile mentally? They think it's going to cause dissension in the locker room. And you, as a former receiver, obviously would know that. You want someone who could get the ball to you, in a win-now mode.
Right, and I think the first 5 years of a young quarterback is very, is very important. I think for their maturity level and their confidence, and then like we said last week too, Jack. We have practice, and you can about tell in practice the capability and ability of your backup quarterback and the starting quarterback. But now in the NFL, it's proven that you got to have two great quarterbacks on your team, two good quarterbacks on your team in order to be competitive, in order to take that 16-game run that you have to have at the end of the season. Because it's gonna be a flip side that in the back that last half of the season, last 8 games, it's some teams gonna be running for the playoff, and they're gonna make the playoff, even though they didn't get a good start in this season because of the COVID and no preseason games. So it's a whole different case scenario. But you're right. Your quarterbacks have to be solid. They have to be on the same page, and they have to have to support each other. And that's what I liked about some of the quarterbacks I have seen in the past. The quarterbacks that work together, and with the play calling and the confidence and the young players coming on board. And, Sam Darnold is one of those players that you have to continue to build your team around.
Byron, and you bring up a great point. And I'll go back in the past with the Giants when Sims got hurt. The Giants were having a great season. I mean, I think they had one loss when he got hurt. And Jeff Hostetler steps in and does an admirable job. I mean, he's no Phil Simms,
right.
But what I saw there was that the coaching staff there was smart enough to know that Jeff Hostetler was not Phil Simms, and they adjusted their game plan to run the ball even a little bit more, to use Hostetler on the run more than they did Simms because he was just the better athlete. And I think a lot of coaches have problems when it comes to the backup because some backups are so different. Sam Darnold to Flacco is a great example. Darnold's an athlete. Flacco is just, he's a pocket quarterback, a big guy, and he has, and he's, experienced, but he's not Sam Darnold in any measure. So when I watched Flacco take over, it seemed like they tried to run the same game plan almost as they did with Darnold. Do you think Adam Gase has lost that locker room, Byron?
I think so. It's definitely. I think he definitely lost the locker room. The players just showing up and they're not even competing now. And I think that have to be with the coach. The head coach had to be in charge. That's why I like Joe Judge. I mean, he's very, very direct and precise on what his approach are. And how what's his expectation of from the player's standpoint and with the coach's standpoint. And you have to be in control the whole time in the National Football League if you want to coach, because it's just that type of format. And you're absolutely right. I think right now they don't have that. The players are just reporting to work and they're not competing. You got to compete each and every week in the National Football League.
Definitely agree.
The players
so we got go ahead, Jack.
Yeah, the players' attitude towards a coach. Take Adam Gase, the perfect example.
Yeah.
If ownership held a team meeting, the owners came down and they said, Adam Gase is our coach this year and in the future, so get your act together that this man is going nowhere. I don't care what anyone writes. He's our coach. Is that going to actually help the team? Because they know he's going to be there, they're going to respond a little better, as opposed to ownership saying nothing, thinking Adam Gase could get fired at any week and he's not going to be there for long.
Yeah, I think that's have a lot to do with it, expectations. But the owners in the NFL, they don't do that. They're gonna come down and go say, "Hey, Adam Gase is gonna be our coach." But what's gonna happen is the press and the media, and they read all this these stories throughout the week. And that just added pressure. And it's so much pressure. And I tell you, losing is just not fun. I don't care how you look at it. And it put a lot of pressure on everybody. But the players or somebody got to step up and accept the responsibility of trying to win and turn the ship around in the course that they're going.
But I'm a big believer leadership comes within. I mean, I don't think the leadership can come from a coach, but it has to be a rare coach, maybe like a Bill Parcells. But even in his situation, the leadership came from the veteran players in the locker room, as you could attest. Okay, Absolutely. And so on. And you look at this Jet team, where's the leadership coming from? It's one thing if it's a young team like the Giants or so on. The guys are establishing themselves. That's fine. The expectations aren't as great. But with the Jets, we're tired of now. They've regressed. They went backwards. And there's no leadership, it seems, within the locker room, someone to step forward and kind of rally the troops.
Right. And the C on these guys' jerseys, that's being captain, right? Those supposed to be your leaders. They were voted in to be the leaders of the team. And somehow, I think these guys that's wearing these jerseys for, just be wearing them and proud to have the C on there. You have a big responsibility as a leader on these football teams. Harry Carson, Phil Simms, all those guys. Those guys was leaders not only on the football field, but in the locker room, the expectation of when we travel. That's what's needed. I mean, you have to be a leader. And it falls on those leaders. You voted in as a leader on your football team, and you're there to lead and to take charge and be responsible. So who are the leaders? That's what you have to pinpoint all of those decision makers. Not only just the coach, but the players got to take charge as well. And that's what's happening in some of these teams. I mean, the Chiefs are a good example. They have leaders on that football field.
Yeah.
Hey, Byron, we got some big matchups this week I want to touch on you with. And, the first one I want to touch on you with is the Browns and the Steelers. At one time, this was a huge rivalry. Lately, of course, the Browns have basically been a doormat for the Steelers. Mayfield is a little banged up. We don't know if Chubbs is going to play or not. How big is this game for the Cleveland Browns to show that, we're up on the level with the Steelers and the Ravens?
I think it's going to be a big game. What I love about the Cleveland Browns now, they have multiple plays that they're running. They're excited. They're not predictable. Of course, they have Hunt back there now and Chubb. Of course, the running backs are really having a great year. The receivers are exciting. And they have multiple types of offenses that they run plays, play action, runs. So they're unpredictable. So the defense have to stay on its toes. But also the Steelers defense has been playing awesome. They got some players now that's, coming off the edges and they sacking the quarterback. They playing phenomenal as well. So it's going to be a good game. That might be the game of the week.
We got the Packers in Tampa. It's just a quarterback matchup pretty much. I give the edge to Green Bay. I think they're a little bit better than Tampa, in my opinion anyway. I think Green Bay is very underrated. What do you see for that game, Byron? You agree with me or you disagree?
I agree. I think it's hard to beat Green Bay as well. The weather's getting ready to change, but I tell you, Tampa, they still got a lot of injuries with some of their receivers and so forth, but it's going to be hard to beat Green Bay. You don't put the ball in Rodgers' hand. No time with any seconds left. He done proved that, and he's still mad about the draft by the Green Bay Packers, which drafted the quarterback when they should be getting some more.
Jordan Love, yeah.
So he right now he's one of the MVPs of the league. I mean, he's in the top 3 for his Player of the Year.
Let me tell you, this drives me crazy when you have 2 elite quarterbacks playing the game. Like when you used to have Brady and Manning, okay, Indianapolis against New England.
Right.
2 quarterbacks are never opposing one another, despite what you're told. Aaron Rodgers is going against the Tampa Bay defense. Tom Brady's going against the Green Bay Packer defense. It's not Brady against Rodgers. Maybe it used to be Manning against Bill Belichick in the New England defense, trying to outsmart them. But the 2 quarterbacks are never going against one another. And yet they compile a record of how the quarterbacks did against one another, but they're not playing. They're not on the field at the same time. I could never see the logic behind that.
Well, you always compare the relief pitcher to the quarterback, so
I got to tell you a story.
Those guys are playmakers, right? So they can always be compared, and these guys are in the top 3 in the National Football League to ever play the game with the stats.
I'm going to tell you a story. Mac might not even know this story. The 1965 playoffs, the year before the Super Bowl came into existence, The Baltimore Colts are playing the Green Bay Packers to see who's going to advance to the championship game. So what happened? The Colts had one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time in Johnny Unitas. Their backup was the quarterback named Gary Quazzo, who could have started on most NFL teams. He was top of the line. But what happened, Unitas was injured for the game. Quazzo was injured for the game. So they used a halfback who later became a hell of a player, Tom Matty. Tom Matty was a quarterback in high school. So he had a wristband to show you how far the game went. All the plays were on his band, and he kept looking to it, looking to it, looking to it. Okay? And they nearly won the game. What happened? They picked up a fumble on the first play of the game, the Colts. They made it 7-0. They added a field goal, 10-0. They scratched, they clawed. The Packers tied at 10-10 at the end of the fourth quarter and then won on overtime, 13-10.
Right.
But it just shows you how the game is evolved. I mean, can you imagine a quarterback now having the plays, on a wristband, and that's how he's calling plays? So when you talk about relief pitches, I come up from the old school, the old way. I'm in a time up by me.
Byron, that was classic. That was classic.
That was classic. But let me tell you something. I was at the Super Bowl 3 years ago, and I met Johnny United's granddaughter. It was so amazing. Yeah. And we was at the NFL event, and they had Johnny United's picture right here, right? And I took a picture with his granddaughter, and we were like, it was amazing because of the history of football.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Brought that up.
Sure. Yeah, hey, Byron, I got one more for you. You being a former Eagles receiver also. The Eagles are really having problems. Their defense, the quarterback is having issues. The offense, there's been articles written about about Wentz where, kind of in a derogatory way about him being a little selfish. And I mean, it looks like they're kind of falling apart. They do have a great coaching staff. I really respect them. Do you think they have a chance at all against Baltimore this week?
I looked at the expert. They're saying that Baltimore 30 and the Eagles 23, 24. I think they do. I think the Chiefs went up there and revealed some of the Baltimore coach weaknesses. And so I think if they play error-free football and they stay focused, they're at home, I think, this week. I think they could be in there. If they play them tough all the way up to the fourth quarter, anything can happen in these games. So Eagles are still a respectable team in the National Football League.
I'm not talking about the Eagles, but we mentioned the Ravens, Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson has been complaining a little bit recently.
Right.
He doesn't like how the offense is being run. Now, if you have a truly elite quarterback, and Lamar Jackson's an MVP, so obviously he has to be elite, but I mean an established elite quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, who's been unhappy with, the offensive plays.
Right.
Why not just let that guy, the quarterback, run the offense like in the old times, call the plays in the huddle? Doesn't the quarterback and the receivers have a better feel of what's going on the field than an offensive coordinator looking down? The offensive coordinator could still send in suggestions, more or less plays, but shouldn't an elite quarterback just be left alone? Doesn't he have the best feel of how to run the plays?
I believe that, and I still to this day believe that. I think, when a player can go and make some small adjustments or get a feel for it, at least give them a couple of options on the football field. Give your quarterback a couple of options to change the play or to try something different. But yeah, I think too, the players just have a better, comfortable position on what adjustments that need to be made on the football field.
Yeah.
And I think they need to get that responsibility to your elite player that's out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, Byron, great job today. Covered a lot of stuff and a great report as always. We love to have you in on every Friday to look ahead at the football games. You give us your camp real quick for the people that are listening and viewing at home about what's going on with your camp.
Yeah, we typically do a lot of camps year round. Right now we're trying to do some virtual stuff. I was on Zoom meetings all yesterday. We're getting ready to set up some stuff at the Super Bowl. We right now I'm just gonna focus on the Super Bowl. I was going out to Las Vegas for the Pro Bowl, but right now we're gonna try to focus on the Super Bowl. go to Tampa and do some things with those kids in the inner cities. And we already got the venue. We're getting the venue set up to go and do what we did last year in Miami. And then in the spring, we're going to focus in after this COVID stuff, get out of the way, go back in and do some things in the community on football camps and things like that, going into the schools and talking about the importance of education and the importance of being a productive citizen in our society. That's what we got to do. We got to continue to let these kids know, football, you one play away when you're playing football from not being seeing your next place. So we talk about the most important things, the respect, the things, growing up to be a productive citizen and giving society, your best, because we are here to change our society and our world and make this a better place for all of us. I mean, I just hate sometimes looking at the news and seeing some of the negative things. And so even yesterday, we getting ready to do some, I'm getting ready to do some stuff with the NFL. We're making a commercial on voting. I don't know why they starting so late. I voted this early in the week, but those are some of the things we got to keep reminding ourselves of in our society, that we got to continue to do some things in the community that really make a difference.
All right, that sounds really great, Byron. And thank you again for coming in.
Thanks,
Can't
Byron.
wait to see you next week with the next report. And
Picking the Giants and the Dolphins, so you'll hold them to it. Yeah.
all right, there you go.
The Dolphins, but I hope the Jets win, just because Jack is a Jets fan. So
Yeah.
Well, hey, listen, don't bring that up right now,
Yeah,
Byron. It's a sore subject. So, have a great day, Byron.
They
Great
last
job.
won Super Bowl when I was in high school.
Right, there you go. That's
Time they were
that's how old Jack is, Byron. So,
well, we love that, because that bring us all together, and we can talk about some stuff. We can take our hats off and just enjoy this weekend.
that's the truth, Byron.
But you guys have a great weekend. I
You too.
enjoyed it. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks,
Okay, Byron, you have a great day. Good job with the camp, Byron. Thank you very much. So that was Byron Williams with our NFL report. It's always a pleasure having him on. Yeah, he really is. And what can you say, Jack? Sal Capaccio from the Bills, Byron with the NFL report, and we'll have Keith Engle coming up with the Patriots report here at about 9:15. I think it's time that we maybe should go ahead and take a commercial, Jack, and we'll come back on the other side with the little bit more sports updates, and of course we'll also have Keith Engle coming. So go ahead and get up and stretch a little bit, Jack, and we'll be right back after this commercial break.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner? Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight. Ooh, can Nina come over? Sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink? Grandma? This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble. Okay. Really? I promise, Grandma. I love you too. Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again?
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
If you talk, then they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah, zero tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's the first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I've made it clear to Matt, that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's gonna be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he gonna know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, Bill, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Try.
Yes, welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. Jack has got back in and settled in. So
Was I late, Mac?
not at all. I still got us under our banner, Jack. So we're good to go. I just wanted to inform the audience out there, since this is
I
live.
fix my wife a cup of coffee. You know, I
That-
could have left the Keurig on, but it
Right.
didn't heat up on its own. Had I left it on, I wouldn't have needed it to heat up, and that could have made the difference between me being on time and not. But they tell me you're a little like Tom Coughlin, because I know that when we get ready for this show in the morning,
Right.
okay, if I'm there 5 minutes earlier than I'm supposed to be, I get fined. I get chewed out the way
Yes,
Tom
that's very
Coughlin
true,
did.
Jack.
Yeah,
And so far, you owe me 50 cents, Jack. So
right. I got to ask Byron Williams how he'd feel as a player. A meeting is called, and you're there 5 minutes before the time you're supposed to be there, and you get fined for being
right,
late.
right.
Vince
So, I mean-
Lombardi used to do that, and Tom Coughlin's idol was Vince Lombardi.
Right.
He was trying to do what Vince Lombardi would do. I mean, that's old school.
Yes, it is. And I mean, listen, live radio is great. I mean, it's, you know, a lot of people go on pre-recorded. They do their podcasts. They do, you know, they do their little shows, and they can film it. They can cut it. They can do whatever. Here, we're just live, Jack. So, I mean, you know, anything that happens that can mess up like yesterday, anything that can happen, we kind of, you know, and we're kind of new with this show too. So we kind of, we're struggling. We're fighting our way through it. I think we're doing okay so far. It's going to get better, and I'm really enjoying, especially working with you, Jack. You're very
And
now.
here, I could say this safely, okay? We're doing better. You know, our chemistry here as a team than the Jets are doing. It's I feel like
Yeah, we haven't lost the locker room yet, Jack. So I mean,
no.
not yet. So I mean, and a hello out there. We just got in for today. Hello to you too, and I hope you're having a great day, and I hope you're enjoying the show. You can find us at our Mac Sports page on Facebook. We're live there every Wednesday through Sunday, and you can also use the username at MacMan62, and it'll bring you right to the Facebook page. We're also live on YouTube and Twitch and Twitter. All you got to do is Google Max Mac and Jack Sports. That'll bring you also to our page. And we're having a great time. And hopefully out there, all of you are having a great time. We got a big weekend coming tomorrow. We got Mac and Jack's sports debate show where me and Jack, a couple old timers, we go at it and pick sides on some of the sports topics. We got a great show tomorrow coming up with Dr. Semendinger, who has an unbelievable Yankee blog called Start Spreading the News. Of course, that's after Frank Sinatra's song, New York, New York. And
We
he
should tape him in for one of our debate questions if possible. You
we
know?
might. We'll
Yeah,
have him.
right.
Yeah, he's very knowledgeable about all sports, especially baseball, Jack. He knows a lot about baseball sports, and that's why I love having him on. He's not just a one trick pony there, and an author, published author, award-winning author. He's a very smart and intelligent man, and we love having him on. And we got Keith Engle from TGI Sports. He's our Patriots insider. He'll be on around 9:15 for everybody out there. So you'll get your fill of Patriots. We've talked about the Bills. We've talked about the Giants and Jets and other NFL games. And we'll have Keith on here at 9:15 off his podcast, and very knowledgeable about the Patriots. And I love Fridays, Jack. Fridays are one of my favorite days of the week for our shows. And let's get a little bit back to about Le'Veon Bell. He leaves the Jets. The Jets, because of a personality conflict, the way the team's running, you don't think he's being used properly. But he comes over to the Jets with a big contract. He is expected to do a lot of things for the Jets. He takes a year off and sits out his last year of the Pittsburgh Steelers, kind of leaving them high and dry, and it no doubt hurt that team amongst a lot of other
players. Don't get it unless it's an elite quarterback. If it's a Patrick Mahomes, you could sit out a year. Okay.
Yeah.
Running backs, wide receivers, defensive tackles, you sit out a year. You're not going to come back with a better contract than what you were offered. Okay. And he didn't, but he still got a pretty good contract with the Jets.
Yeah.
Now, when the Jets parted ways with him, I put myself in his spot. He had three choices, basically, even though some other teams would have taken him. The three finalists were the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Dolphins. And I kept thinking, if I were him, what would have been the best fit for me?
Right.
If winning an immediate championship is the most important thing, you're closest with the Chiefs. And you're going to be with, even though you might not agree, Patrick Mahomes, who I feel is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. He doesn't have the body of work, but he won a Super Bowl. The potential's there. We agree he's going to be one of the great NFL quarterbacks for years to come, okay?
Sure.
And a great coach in Andy Reid, a great program, very stable. He could win. He could get his championship this year, his Super Bowl ring. Buffalo Bills are getting there. They're trending in the right direction. He would have been a featured back with them. He would have gotten plenty of carries. They've had difficulty rushing this year, so he would have gotten great opportunities there and a chance to stick it to the Jets being in the same division.
Very
that
true.
competitive feeling of satisfaction. And then there's the Miami Dolphins, who are also in the Jet division. The Miami Dolphins are the up-and-coming team. They got a great young coach in Brian Flores, okay? And they're getting there. They're going to be an elite team in a couple of years. And a couple of years, though, in the NFL, though, is a bit of an eternity. You don't know where you're going to be in a couple of years unless you were a young quarterback who's just drafted. So he's going for the immediate success that you could get with the Chiefs, okay? Because the Chiefs, without a doubt, are going to be in the thick of things for the Super Bowl. Whether they get there and win it or not remains to be seen. So that's going to be really interesting. But he's also going to find, if he wasn't happy with the amount of carries he got with the Jets, don't think because you go somewhere else you're going to get more carries.
No, it's
They're not
no,
gonna- yeah.
especially with that young running back they got out there right now, who's having an incredible season so far. The Chiefs are multifaceted. They have a lot of different ways they can beat you on offense, whether it's running with the young kid and Le'Veon Bell going there. I imagine he's a good receiver out of the backfield. They'll use him in that a lot. And of course, the Chiefs got one of the best tight ends in the league and a good wide receiving crew. I mean, their offense to me, Jack, their offense is great, right? The Chiefs offense, there's no doubt about it. They got a great offense. They're being
they got a great passing game.
Right,
and Patrick
right.
Mahomes can
Right.
run, but their rushing attack has been one of the worst in the NFL this
Well,
year.
I mean, the kid had a big game. I think there's a lot of potential there for him. But what I'm saying, Jack, is what's suspect on the Chiefs is their defense, as it was last year for a time, where they lost those 3 games in a row before they turned it around. And this year, it looks the same. I mean, it looks like right now that you can score points on the Chiefs as long as you can control the passing game of the Chiefs. If you can control and use what the Patriots did and now what the Raiders did of playing zone defense, making Patrick Mahomes find the holes in the zone, not blitzing him, giving him a hot receiver, it looks like you can beat the Chiefs so far. I mean, it's
You
a
got to
long.
score a lot of points against the Chiefs.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a
Score,
long season.
a good amount of points. You're not going to keep the passing game.
Well, Jack, the Patriots didn't score a lot of points, and their defense almost won, and special teams almost won that game for them. I mean, the Chiefs' defense won that game for them with that interception. So I believe there is a way to beat the Chiefs this year, and at the end of the game, as you say, that offense can explode. But I think there's a way to beat them this year, and I think that their defense had better step it up because when they get in those big games in the playoffs and they're playing, the Bills again, or they're playing the Ravens again, or these other teams that have played them already, I think their defense has to come together again, and Spagnuolo has to put a good defensive plan in there.
Well, the Chiefs are the Super Bowl, the defending Super Bowl champions, and a lot of times these teams with a championship pedigree, they know how to pace themselves over the course of a season, okay? They'll win a few games, they'll establish themselves, and then they'll kind of peak as the year goes along. And I think that's the mode the Chiefs are in. It's kind of take your foot off the accelerator a bit in the middle of the season. Of course, you're still trying to win, but you want to be sure everything is in place as getting towards the playoffs. And they strike me as that type of team.
I agree, Jack. I mean, they're the favorites to win the Super Bowl. There's no doubt about that. Touch on San Francisco real quick before Keith comes in. Do you believe that this is, and I'll probably bring this up again Sunday, but I want your opinion on this. Do you think it's that Super Bowl loser hangover? I mean, San Fran doesn't look like the team it was last year at all. Their defense doesn't look as good. Their offense, of course, they've had injuries, is really struggling, and they're going up against the Rams, and the Rams have a real good shot at beating the 49ers.
Well, I picked the Rams to go to the Super Bowl in the beginning of the year. Jimmy Garoppolo has the bad ankle; he's hurt, but beyond that, you wonder how much faith they really have in Jimmy Garoppolo. And Jimmy Garoppolo has been criticized about the Super Bowl. But let's be honest, if the Niner defense didn't let down more or less at the end and the Chiefs came on, with the 3 touchdowns at the end, what would we be saying if the Niners had held on and they were Super Bowl champions now? We'd be looking at them a different way. And,
right.
And certain players like who you think would be the heart of the defense, like Richard Sherman, they've lost a step.
Yes, they have.
And
again, Jack, the only team that really did anything after them Super Bowl losses was the Buffalo Bills coming back. I think it was 4 consecutive years.
Yeah.
Right. But again, I mean, that's the only team that I can remember that really came back after losing the Super Bowl and had a good year. The Rams. We'll see what happens. I mean, I think that the 49ers have taken a step back. I think the Kansas City Chiefs can be beat this year. They're not invincible. And right now, we got it coming on with us, folks. We got Keith Engle, our Patriots insider, and we're going to bring him on right now. And I know he's ready to go. Keith, bring that to the show so all the fans can see you. There you go. Look at that.
We got our little Patriot totem pole this morning.
There you go. And Keith,
we pray that every day.
Business Insider. He's the host of TGI Sports Podcast. Today we've had a great show, Keith. We had Sal Capaccio, who is a big Buffalo Bills insider over there on radio and does his podcast. We had Byron Williams in, and now we got the Patriots spokesman in, which I'm happy about having you on. And how you doing today, Keith?
I am doing great today. Thanks for having me on again today, guys. Hope you're doing well. And it's a little nicer where you guys are. It's very dreary here in upstate.
What's more entertaining, Mac and myself or Bill Belichick press conference?
Oh my God!
I can't think of a worse fate in life than sitting through a lifetime of Bill Belichick press conferences.
He actually had one that intrigued me a little bit, very briefly for a few seconds, when they were playing, I think, the Bears and Khalid Mack. They had asked him, is Khalid Mack, the best defensive play ever? So is he better than Lawrence Taylor, as good as Lawrence Taylor? And for a second, Bill Belichick just turned and said, we're talking about Lawrence Taylor here, who, of course, he coached when he was a defensive coordinator for the Giants.
Yeah.
That was one of the rare times he showed that emotion, like, are you kidding me? How do you compare anyone to Lawrence Taylor? I kind of enjoyed that, but of course, he reverted to form quickly and didn't want to get into it. And would Bill Belichick actually do any of these press conferences if he wasn't required to?
Probably not.
No show. Or would he feel, I want to give the guys in the media a little slack once in a while? Or would he actually talk more if it were voluntary?
Sometimes, he doesn't have to say a lot sometimes to get a lot across either. If you remember years ago, real quick, I know you guys had some questions, but real quick, years ago, they played I can't remember the year, maybe 4 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe now, they got blown out on a Monday night against Kansas City. Jimmy Garoppolo came in, played really well in garbage time. And, he got asked the stupid question of, do you have a quarterback controversy? And he just kind of said, really? And that's when he had the famous, we're on to Cincinnati quote, do we have a quarterback controversy? Right.
Yeah.
Right. Keith, he does do good Subway commercials, though. I did enjoy.
Oh, they are very good.
Yes. So a lot of people say that he's very funny and that he's very entertaining personably. He has a great personality, but I think he's learned that from working in the NFL so long, them reporters can eat you up if you give them anything. And he just takes the way out. Well, I'm just going to say what I'm saying. We're going to talk about the next game. The last game's over, blah, blah, blah. And of course he does that on purpose.
Well, I think he likes the persona that he portrays. And, go back to that,
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Remember the Deflategate the press conference on that Saturday afternoon when he explained all the scientific things about the football. It was just like riveting TV.
How much air you put in the ball?
Oh yeah, it was very, very interesting TV.
Go ahead, Jeff.
How much input does Bill Belichick actually have on the offensive game plan? Does he leave it up to Josh McDaniel? Does Josh McDaniel set it up and just run it by Bill Belichick? I mean, how much responsibility does Bill Belichick take in that? Because, by nature, he's a defensive coach.
Yeah, he takes more not responsibility. Yes, McDaniel's responsible for putting the game plan together. Bill's got certain things that he may want to do during the course of the game. And he'll talk to McDaniel about that and when they're instilling the game plan. And of course, on game day, when the plays get called, he's always got that ultimate veto button, and he's going to be involved in a big moments. He's not just going to let them go off and do their own thing. They've talked about the plays they want to potentially run in every situation. That's the thing about Belichick is, being prepared for every contingency. So, his coaches know what he wants, what he expects. And I think McDaniel and him are on the same wavelength.
I think McDaniel better be on the same wavelength with Bill Belichick, or that'd be a short-lived, marriage there. you got the Broncos and the Pats coming up. Cam is rumored he's coming back. He's going to be playing that game. There's rumors about the COVID there and that the game is still on. This to me is the Patriots should win this game. It's a big game for them. Buffalo seemed to falter a little bit against the Titans. The two losses the Patriots have were very close games. Could have went either way. So they do look like they have a strong team again this year, Keith. What are your thoughts on first place? Are the Bills better than the Patriots in your opinion, or are they about equal?
When you throw the coaching into the equation, I would say they're fairly equal. The Bills have more talent on both sides of football, in my opinion, than the Patriots have. But, it's how you utilize that talent. I see a dogfight between the Patriots and the Bills for the division, and I think the Patriots may very well have to beat the Bills twice to win the division. They're 2-2, as you mentioned, Mac, but they're really, and they could have won both those games,
right?
But they're not games going into the season that I would have expected them to win. So I would expected them before the season started. If you say where they're going to be after 4 weeks, I would have said 2-2.
The league has injury reports, and they have to have full disclosure. I understand for gambling reasons, indirectly, so on, to set a line.
Mm-hmm.
But coaches have to prepare for players. And Drew Lock, is he going to start? Is he not going to start? The Patriots have to prepare a game plan. And there's a difference whether or not Drew Lock is going to be playing or not. We talk about Cam Newton coming back is the storyline to the game. Is Cam going to play? Well, what about on the other side? No one's talking about Drew Lock.
Yeah.
And that's got to be driving Belichick crazy. Are they preparing for Drew Lock? Or one of the backups like Fred Ripien?
Yeah, knowing Bill Belichick, he's going to prepare for both. It's easier, obviously, when you can prepare for one. And it's kind of ironic, right? Because the Patriots have not always been forthcoming with their injury reports either. And Tom Brady was listed as questionable for about 15 years.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah. Questionable means the guy's going to play.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. I think Drew Lock's going to play this Sunday myself, so I think that's probably how they're preparing in the most part.
So if they lose to the Broncos this week, if they do, is that a major setback for them?
Yeah.
You're going to go 2-3. They should win this game, like I said, like you said, and I said they were close. Both games. The Broncos don't really have a good team this year. They got potential for the future. Would that be a major setback, you think?
Oh, I think so for sure. They got the Bills in 2 weeks, and I feel like it's kind of important that they get there 4-2. They got San Francisco on the road next week, which they've got their problems out there as well, and I think that's a very winnable game. Patriots' big problem, and people aren't, again, with this whole postponement thing and the COVID situation, there was a lot of talk about the Broncos. The Broncos are upset. They lost their bye week. And, last week they were preparing to play a football game. They didn't really have a bye week. Well, now the Patriots are preparing to play Sunday, and they haven't really practiced until yesterday.
Right.
For almost 2 weeks.
See, seeing Malcolm Butler the other evening intercept a couple of passes for Tennessee against the Bills.
Yeah.
You keep hopping back to the Super Bowl, and I know Belichick's a now guy. He doesn't look behind, so on. But that was a missed opportunity, obviously. And Malcolm Butler not playing and then no longer being a Patriot. And arguably, he made the greatest defensive play or the biggest defensive play in NFL history. You could argue, if there's one defensive play, what was the biggest single defensive play in NFL history? My guess off the top of my head would be Malcolm Butler's interception against Seattle. But Malcolm Butler is still an elite player, okay, who could be helping New England right now. What exactly went down, before that game, and why isn't Malcolm Butler still a Patriot?
Well, Malcolm Butler, obviously, I would agree with you about that play, by the way. It was one of the best plays. Malcolm Butler is a very productive NFL player. He had his struggles when he first left the Patriots for a bit. He broke some team rules that that week. It's up in the air what they were. And Belichick, being a stickler that he is, said, if you do this, you're not playing.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because that you hearken back to that. And while, Belichick doesn't look backwards, I can look backwards. And I can tell you that one of the tipping points in his relationship with Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski was the benching of Malcolm Butler in that game. They did not agree with the call. They thought whatever he did, the transgression wasn't serious enough to warrant a benching, and that it seriously hampered the team, which obviously it did that day as the Eagles went up and down the field pretty much all day long.
Yeah, it's very true. And Keith, it's a quarter way through the season, and normally they break it down, the first quarter, second quarter, and so on. And this is where the Patriots start making their move to improve a certain area, whether it's a running game or passing game or whatever they want to work on. And where do you see the major improvement coming from now on and with the Patriots? What do you see? A running game coming together with a running back, not just Cam Newton, or the passing game getting a little bit better?
Well, I think they need to improve everywhere, as Belichick would say, right? We have to continually improve. You're either getting better or you're getting worse. You don't stay the same. Cam, I've heard rumors this week that they're going to let Cam loose. Maybe not this week, because he's been limited for the last 2 weeks, basically. But I can see them letting Cam loose a little bit more. And also, Damian Harris I think, has got some tremendous potential at running back. They've got a really good depth. That's why they didn't go after Bell any harder.
Rumors are they tried to trade for him.
Yeah, the Jets. I think.
Would they have been willing to take on his contract early in the year if they could have gotten him?
No, I think he would not have taken on the contract. But once he was Joe Douglas, I read an article yesterday that Joe Douglas, in a last-ditch attempt to get something for Bell, called the Patriots and a couple other teams and was willing to trade him within the division to get anything. And at that point, Belichick said, no, they've got some pretty good depth. They don't have a superstar in that backfield, but you got very productive guys. And Harris, I just mentioned, and James White, and Burkhead, when he stays healthy, is a very productive player. And you've got Sony Michel should be back here in a few weeks. I mean, there's a guy he's a wild card. He's got so much talent, and when he's on his game and he's healthy, he brings a different dimension to this team. But as far as going forward and what they're going to do, I think you're going to see a lot of Cam. I don't think they can continue to run him, as a run first option as often as they did the first 3 weeks, because he's going to be susceptible to injury. He's not a young guy. He's a big guy, yeah, but he's obviously had his share of injuries, and you can't subject him to that over 16 games. So
Brian Hoyer had a rough game against the Chiefs. Who's their number one, their number two quarterback if Cam has to go out of the game? Would it still be Hoyer? Is it Stidham? Who's number two on the depth chart right now?
He hasn't named a second guy. It's got to be Stidham in my mind. If Stidham's healthy, and hopefully he's going to get some more reps. I mean, we may have talked about it last week a little bit, but I think he got thrown into a bad situation that Monday night. Hoyer made the big mistakes. The team had their back against the wall. He had no reps to speak of because of injury and other circumstances. But I think he's the guy who needs to get be the second string player. I mean, Hoyer's just, they're not going to win games with Hoyer there.
No, with an experienced quarterback like that, even though he hasn't been a starter, I mean, he's got to know that there's certain things that you can't and can do during a game. And he just, he almost handily lost that game for you guys. So I can imagine. I'm surprised he ain't cut, to tell you the truth.
If Stidham shows he's healthy, and Bo Hoyer may be on shaky ground here as the season goes on.
Okay, Keith, you got Miami, and I want to touch a little bit on Miami. I knew they would improve a lot this year. A big win last week. The Patriots. Do you consider them a threat to the wild card over there? I mean, we got the extra wild cards. They're getting a little momentum. Fitzpatrick can throw 500 yards one week with 5 touchdowns and throw 5 interceptions the next week. I don't know if they're going to let Tua play or not this year. Do you consider them a threat to you or the Bills at all?
Not yet. I mean, I think they're certainly much improved. I'm not only shocked that they won last week, I'm shocked how they won. It was just they bludgeoned the 49ers. They're playing some good defense. They're only 1-3, but I think they've only scored 3 less points than they've given up. So, I mean, as that offense gets better, they've got good coaching down there. They really do.
Brian Flores is good.
I just think they're a year away, and the problem with Fitzpatrick, as we probably talked about a little bit last week, is he'll have these games, and then all of a sudden in a big moment he remembers he's Ryan Fitzpatrick, and all of a sudden there's a couple of bad interceptions, and so I think they're a little ways away. But if I was a Dolphins fan, I'd be encouraged by the direction they're heading for sure.
Definitely. Anything else, Jack?
When you talk about wild card, there's a lot of good teams in the AFC that are.
That's very true.
Makes little moves, and I'm not qualified to say what type of player Carl Davis is, a defensive tackle, but I can't say that the Jacksonville Jaguars are in a good team, and they got him off the Jaguars practice squad. So to get a defensive tackle who can't make the Jaguars regular roster, it just doesn't make sense. You're going to one of the weaker teams' practice squad to get a player. How's he going to contribute to the Patriot team? A player such as that.
Well, it's interesting because through his career, Belichick has found these types of guys often, and he's not looking necessarily for superstars, but he's looking for guys who have one skill set, right? Maybe they can do one thing well. I haven't seen him play up close. They've had some injuries on the defensive front, so I think they needed some bodies, and there's only so many available at this time of year. And Belichick, like everything else, everybody else, he's going to put him in the best position to succeed. And there's got to be something, and I have not seen it yet myself, Jack, that Belichick and the scouting staff saw in this guy to bring him in off.
Belichick, how much pride does he take in the defense? I mean, he wants to win, but you get a guy who's a project. Does it mean a lot to Bill Belichick to make that guy into a real quality player? Because it makes him just feel good that he can impact a career positively.
I think absolutely, and you've seen it manifest itself many times over the years, and in Ninkovich and Mike Vrabel. I think of guys that who were really good football. Ted Bruschi. I mean, these guys didn't have Hall of Fame talent, but they were really good football players. And Bill Belichick and the rest of the defensive staff, he's had some pretty good people working under him over the years on the defensive side of the football too. They didn't always have the moniker defensive coordinator because they got to pay them more money if they give him a title. Sure. Which I don't believe there's a defensive coordinator there right now. Actually, it's his son is the de facto coordinator.
Right.
But yes, Bill and Bill takes a lot of pride in defense. That's his pride and joy, So they always find it. They have to do some creative things sometimes because of the talent that they have. But they've never, I guess, a couple of years, but in this 20-year run, they've only had a couple of years where their defense was not, above average.
Yeah. Keith, and one last thing for you. Following football, playing football, coaching football, there's always been a big debate. Does talent win or does the system win? And if you look at the Patriots, as to me, one of the most unbelievable, maybe the best dynasty right now in sports history, because football is a lot different than a lot of other sports. You need a whole complete team to win it. I don't care who your quarterback is. Your team has to function. But it seems to me that Belichick has a system and he has players come in and play that system. Even when Brady first started, it was be a game manager, don't lose the game. And once Brady got better, he adjusts the system and lets Brady do a lot of timing passing and opens up the game plan a lot. So to me, the best argument for that as the New England Patriots and Bill Belichick, that the system, in the end, normally wins over talent. And not that the Patriots haven't had any talent, but they haven't had the players other teams have.
I agree. And, the system, you do need some talent, right, to be able to make the system work. And you have to be adaptable within your system. They asked, Devin McCourty was asked about Belichick this week. And, is he a different coach this year with Brady gone and different people gone? And McCourty had a great answer. He said he has a different coach this year, but he's been a different coach almost every single year because he adjusts to what he has to work with. I mean, he won. We can talk about Brady too, but think about the first Super Bowl. He won the Super Bowl with Antoine Smith as a running back and David Patton, Troy Brown, and David Givens, I think, is my wide receivers. He won a Super Bowl with those guys. He won a Super Bowl with, I take nothing away from Edelman, great player. But when he's your best receiver, when they came back and beat the Falcons without any, we talked about this last week, no really elite players at that wide receiver position. Edelman's elite, I guess, in his own way, but he's not that game breaker, right?
Yeah.
So to be able to win with some of those, the different talent sets he's had, it is the system, Mac. I agree, but you've got to be able to tweak that system somewhat too from year to year to fit your squad.
And that 20-year run at the top, especially in the NFL in this day and age, is unheard of. In this era, it's phenomenal.
It'll never happen
again, I don't think.
Same time. You owe me a Coke, Keith.
Never be done again. And he's still got a flawed team this year, and they're going to be in position at the end of the year they'll be in the playoffs. I would have to think unless something drastic happens. Cam gets hurt, misses considerable time, or somebody else. The end of the year, they're going to be in the playoffs and have a chance every year.
Definitely agree.
Every year he's got a chance. So
Yeah, I definitely agree. And there's that will, like you said, and I said at the same time, it'll never happen again in football history. I believe that. So Keith, again, thanks for coming in. We enjoyed the knowledge you have on the Patriots. You're a real pro, and I would encourage all the people out there that are listening and viewing to check him out as the host of the TGI Sports Podcast. He does a great job over there. And again, Keith, thank you very much for coming in this week.
I appreciate you guys having me. We'll talk to you next week.
Sounds great, Keith. Have a great day.
Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
So there you have it, Jack. The third insider today, Keith, one of the best covering the Patriots, and it's a pleasure having him in every week to give us a little time. He's a busy man, I know that.
Denver's got a good defense. It's not a lock that the Patriots beat them this week. Everyone thinks it's a formality. Well, Denver's a weak team. They've only won one game. The Patriots will feast on them. They've got
Jack, anybody can beat anybody. Really, football is a game of fumbles and turnovers and penalties at the worst possible time. I see some of the best teams go up against some of what people call the worst teams. We forget that these are all professional football players that are playing a game that is a game of turnovers. It's a game of mistakes. And there aren't too many times, Jack, as I spoke about before. Bill Belichick has said it. Bill Parcells has said it. Vince Lombardi has said it. You lose the game. There's very few times that a team actually comes out and beats the hell out of you. And that's a part of the game. It really is. So
yeah.
All right, Jack. So let's get to let's see if I can bring this up. We're going to do a little trivia. I'm going to skip the music because I'm not feeling lucky today.
And I have no idea what questions, Mac.
No, Jack. But with your knowledge of sports, you should be able to get this. This is fairly easy. I think that
those are the ones I miss.
Obviously, easy ones. So let me see if I can get this trivia question. This is about a defensive end in football. He was a member of a championship football team that was always in the mix. He was a great defensive end. I'm not going to give you the team's name because that'll give it away. But anyway, so he's a great defensive end on a great football team. He holds the record for fumble recovery still. And he's famous by returning a fumble the wrong way to the other team's end zone while his
I
players
forgot
on
about
his.
that. The Minnesota Viking, Alan Page, is it?
No, sir. You only get one shot, Jack. No. One
With
shot, Jack. That's it.
what one of the Viking players did.
It was a Viking player. You are correct, but it was not the great Alan Page.
And it wasn't Carl Eller.
No, it was the other defensive end, Jack. Can you remember who that was?
Not Carl Kasulki on that team.
No, sir. No, sir. I don't believe you. I don't believe you can't get this.
I could have sworn it was Alan Page.
No, it was Jim Marshall, Jack. Jim Marshall. Okay. I mean, I remember watching that. The Purple was one of the greatest defenses of all time.
4 Super Bowls, not in a row. Like the Bills went to 4 Super Bowls and they never won one.
Right.
The Vikings went to 4 with the Purple People Eaters and could never quite get over the top and never win a Super Bowl.
And that was with two. That was with 2 different quarterbacks too, Jack. The first one was Joe Cap when they played the Chiefs, and he was a running quarterback, and the Chiefs absolutely destroyed him. Fran Tarkenton was the other 3 Super Bowls. The great Fran Tarkenton, Hall of Fame quarterback. The Scrambler, one of the first.
You mentioned I'm sorry, Matt, with Alan Page.
Defensive, most valuable player, one of the only defensive players to get that. Alan Page was one of my favorite football players of all time. He wasn't heavy. He was built like a linebacker, but he played guard, and he was so fast that when that ball snapped, he was in the backfield a lot before the offensive guard or tackle knew where he was. So he was a great Hall of Fame defensive tackle or guard, if you want to say. He played on the inside and was unbelievable. But the Vikings were there a few times under Bud Grant, and a great coach, and never could get it done. They played against the Dolphins, they played against the Steel Curtain, and a lot of great teams back then in the AFC, Jack.
I remember the team that Alan Page returned. Jim Marshall, I mean. I don't know why I'm thinking Alan Page returned. They kicked the same team, close enough, but the wrong player. But Alan Page, Jim Marshall returning the fumble the wrong way. What I remember about that play is one of the players in the opposing team patted him on the back after.
Yes.
Congratulated him. You mentioned Bud Grant, the Viking coach. We talked about old school before. This guy was old school. They played their football games, the Vikings, in the Metrodome. Not the Metrodome, not the Dome Stadium. But it was, that name only. It was bitter cold in Minnesota. Bitter cold when they played the games. He would not allow the players to have hand warmers, even in practice.
Right.
He wouldn't allow that because to his way of thinking, using hand warmers was a sign of weakness.
Right.
I mean, they were old school where the football players were supposed to be tough during the time when Bud Grant played in the 1940s when he was a player himself. So when he had his teams in the 1960s, 1970s, I mean, they would practice under brutal conditions.
Yeah, and I remember because I would be watching the Vikings, and of course I did follow them after Tarkin left the Giants a little bit, and they would have a snowstorm, and they would wear their white uniforms, Jack, and you could barely see them on the field. It was unfair, is what it was, Jack. But go ahead.
Bud Grant was an old school NFL player, old school. So when the Jets beat the Colts in the Super Bowl III, he was very unhappy. The following year, the Jets in an exhibition game, they were playing the Vikings. So the Jets are Super Bowl champs. They're playing the Vikings. Bud Grant's intention was to destroy the Jets, to show it was a fluke, even though it was just an exhibition game.
Sure.
And the Jets won that game.
Yes.
And so then Bud Grant, but he still has a chance at vindication because they're playing the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And, of course, the Chiefs beat up the Vikings 23-7, and they'd have all of Hank Stram's antics on the sidelines because he was Mike,
Yeah, the whole Super Bowl.
But he did get a little bit of revenge. Opening game, the Vikings played the Chiefs, a Super Bowl rematch, and the Vikings won that game. And Bud Grant afterwards gloated. He said, I guess the offense of the 40s can beat the offense of the 70s.
Right, right.
Something to that effect.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, and you know, the very most, I remember that Super Bowl, Jack, the most underrated part of the Chiefs was their defense with Buchanan and those guys and Bell. These guys had, Willie Lanier, right? They had a great defense, and that was the most underrated part of it. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna get on to this day in sports history, Jack, and some great things for you to comment on. In 1936, Lou Gehrig is voted MVP of the league. It wasn't like it is today, Jack. It was by a writers' association. But in 1936, the Great Iron Horse is voted MVP of the league. And we've talked about this before. If not for Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig would probably be the greatest, most famous Yankee.
If I'm not mistaken, was that Joe DiMaggio's rookie year? Because I know Joe DiMaggio was the toast of New York, the toast of baseball when he was a rookie with the Yankees, okay? And imagine how Lou Gehrig felt, an established great Yankee. He responded to DiMaggio being a rookie by turning in one of the best years of Gehrig's legendary career. He was phenomenal. And I believe that was DiMaggio's rookie year that Gehrig won the MVP award that year. And DiMaggio, for many years, would gloat about Lou Gehrig. DiMaggio was in awe of Lou Gehrig, coming in. Just as young players were in awe of, Jolting Joe later on, he was in awe of Lou Gehrig.
Sure, a living legend, and that speech. And that speech that he gave, at the end of his career there with the Lou Gehrig disease is probably one of the most memorable speeches of any baseball player to give, and he'll always be remembered for that. In 1940, yes, sir, unbelievable
Nickname for him.
In 1942, the National Boxing Association freezes titles for those serving in the armed forces. So with World War II kicking off, Jack, they went ahead and froze the titles back then.
Well, Joe Louis didn't defend his title for 5 years his World Heavyweight Championship from 1941 until 1946 because he served, in the military, so on. He boxed a lot of exhibitions. He entertained the troops. So when Joe Louis came back in 1946, he defended the title a few times. He wasn't the same fighter. The funny thing, he fought Billy Conn in 1941, and in a legendary fight, Louis came from behind and knocked out Conn in the 13th round. They met 5 years later. Both of them served in the military. They were just shells of their former self. Louis knocked him out in the 8th round. It wasn't a tough fight.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine being a vet, Jack, that, I've been on some TDYs in certain places, but when you go to a war like that and you come back and try to reestablish yourself, I mean, we know a lot of baseball players did that in the 40s, serving their country, some in more dangerous spots than others. I mean, I awe these people that come back, like Ted Williams, who came back and just reassumed his career. And these people that were gone for that amount of years, how many more batting titles, how many more boxing championships they could have won if there was no war. So give them the credit give them the honor they deserve. A lot of them volunteered and went and weren't drafted. So it always makes me think of how these great players who went into war could have had more statistics, more records, more titles. It really blows my mind, Jack.
Mac, I'm guilty of this myself, and we all are, but I know I am. We tend to look at bottom line stats, what a guy did over his career. We don't consider that deeply the circumstances. Take one of the controversial Hall of Fame inductions, that of Harold Baines. A lot of people say Harold Baines isn't a Hall of Fame. It shouldn't have been getting in. But Joe Torre, who was on the Veterans Committee, who voted for Baines getting in, said, well, if it wasn't for the strike in 1994, he would have gotten 3,000 hits for his career. So they sometimes take these extra factors into consideration. Or, oh boy, what the great first baseman, brain cramp now, who George Steinbrenner traded, who had 493 homers for his career. He went to Tampa Bay. I just forgot his name for this second. But if
Okay.
it wasn't for the strike, you would have had a 500 homer. He would have had a 500 homer career and have been inducted in the Hall of Fame. For some reason, you have a name, you know who the name is, a great play, and all of a sudden it clicks out.
Yeah. And
know,
especially
and
during the
that's
Steinbrenner
it.
years, I knew them all. I know it's not Chris Chambliss, which was the first thing that popped in my mind. He didn't get close to 493 home runs. So again, Jack, the great Joe Louis. I mean, if he didn't go to war, how many more fights would he have won? How much better would his mindset have been? I mean, maybe maybe he wouldn't have retired penniless. I mean, there's so many things that really affect people, as you said, that we don't think about when we go back and look at history or look at stats, that all these other things that come out and that they go through, we don't take into consideration. And it's a shame.
Yeah, we don't. Like Joe Louis, for example, 5 years, okay? 5 years between title defenses. Just give him 2 title defenses a year more. He holds the record as is with 26. He would be putting it out of range.
Right.
His breaking his record for heavyweight title defenses would have been then as difficult as breaking Joe DiMaggio's for his hitting streak.
Right. So
It's
I mean,
still driving me crazy. The 493 homers, the Yankees, Steinbrenner traded a great talent at first base, had a great career for a minor league pitcher who didn't pan out. That's when Steinbrenner was impulsive. You ever have the name off the top of your head?
Oh, I know who you're talking about. I just can't think of it right now.
With Tampa Bay.
I can't
in the Hall of Fame.
I can't recall the name either, but I know who you're talking about, Jack. And maybe we drank the same stuff today, Jack.
Crazy.
We got to do decaffeinated coffee in the morning, I think.
493 career homers.
You're not talking about Tito, right? You're not talking about Tito Martinez. That was.
No.
I'm just throwing names out there.
And it's been controversial whether he should be in the Hall of Fame. I hope the Veterans
man, I can't remember.
Gets around to him. Oh my.
Well, Jack, it'll come to you after the show's over. Don't worry about it. We can post it. And Jack, in 1962, the New York Yankees appear in 12 of last 14 World Series, winning 9. That's the only comparison I can give to the Patriots. I mean, the Celtics are there too. There's a great organizations that won so many championships in a row, even to UCLA. But the Yankees, again, with their great history, they back in 1962.
Listen, the Yankees had a run from 1949 through 1953. They won 5 World Series in a row. Then the funny thing about it, in 1954, the one year they didn't win, they didn't go to the World Series. That was the year the Indians beat them out for the American League pennant because the Indians won 111 games. The Yankees' 103 victories that year were more than in their World Series.
I know.
Well enough. They did better than they did before. So it shows you the circumstances. But then after the phenomenal year, the Yankees went to the World Series the next 4 years. 55, 56, 57, 58. They won it in 56 and 58. For some reason, in 1959, they had a terrible year. I mean, as I recall, they, won just about half their games in 59 when the White Sox won the pennant. But then the Yankees went to 5 series in a row, 60 through 64, winning in 61 and 62. And of course, beginning in 65, they had that drought that lasted.
CBS bought them and it was all over, Jack. In 1969, at 100-1 odds, the Mets win the World Series in 5 games, beating the Orioles, Jack. And that was an amazing year. Nobody saw it coming. The young pitching staff. I mean, Tom Seaver and I'm trying to now. I got a brain freeze. I know Nolan Ryan went, but there was one other pitcher that I just saw.
Nolan was a relief pitcher for that.
Right. But he did win some games that year.
Kuzman.
Thank you, Gary Kuzman. Thank you very much. Yeah, he was another great pitcher. And the Mets, with hardly any offense, came up there and they beat the Orioles. In 1987, Jack, Mike Tyson TKOs Tyrell Biggs for the heavyweight title. What can you say about
Tyson and Biggs knew one another in the amateurs. Biggs made the Olympic team and went on to win a gold medal. Tyson got eliminated by Henry Tillman. There are two heavyweight divisions, regular and super heavyweight. Tyson got eliminated in the finals of the Olympic trials. He lost a couple of decisions to Henry Tillman. But Tyson was an alternate. He felt, he was snubbed by Biggs because someone saw the team at the airport and they were talking about the Olympics. And he thought he heard Biggs say about Tyson, well, he's not going to the Olympics, so on. He felt that Biggs had looked down on him. So when they fought, he really had it out for Biggs. He really wanted to punish him. And he stopped Biggs in the 7th round, and he did. Now, Tyson didn't carry him. Tyson doesn't carry anyone, but he beat Biggs up pretty well. Now, that was Biggs' first defeat, and it burst his bubble as far as him being a heavyweight champion and so on. But on reflection, lasting 7 rounds against the Mike Tyson then wasn't that bad.
Right. I mean, compared to a lot of other people that fought Mike Tyson. And birthdays, Jack, we have in 1929, Walt Michaels, 5-time Pro Bowl linebacker and head coach of your New York Jets, was born today, sir. So do you remember him coaching the Jets?
About the 1988 season, Michaels took a Jets team to the AFC Championship game where they lost. But I thought about Walt Michaels before when we were talking about Adam Gase. It'll be a miracle if this happens. But Walt Michaels got off to an 0-3 start. That's
right.
0-3. And people were calling for him to be fired. And all of a sudden, the Jets turned it around. They turned it around. So from the media calling for Michaels to be fired to him coming one game of the Super Bowl, and that's when they played Miami and the field was all muddied and everything. But it's a team that had to turn it around.
Was that Miami or was that Cleveland, Jack, that they played in the
That was Miami.
Was it Miami? I remember that was one of the only years in that period, 86, 87, 88, and one of those, I can't remember the exact year, was when the Jets and Giants almost met in the Super Bowl, the Giants Super Bowl year.
Well,
they played that was the 86 season, and it was very close. I know that.
Yeah, right. Well, that season, the Jets had gotten off to a 10-1 start. Then they lost their last 5 regular season games, 10-6. So they barely got in as a wild card, but then they beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the first game of the playoffs, and they were leading the Cleveland Browns 20-10 with 4 minutes to go.
Yeah.
And they stopped Cleveland, but Mark Gastineau had a roughing the passer penalty that kept the Cleveland drive going. Cleveland was able to take it into overtime and win.
Right, and they lost to Denver. I mean, that was the closest that you ever.
They didn't get to Denver. That was another year under Bill.
Well, I'm just saying. Right.
10-0 lead. Yeah.
But I'm just saying that was the closest time that the Giants and Jets ever met in the Super Bowl, and that would have been outstanding. Dave DeBusschere, New York Knicks forward, and the last American Basketball Association commissioner, was born in 1940. Jack.
He's no longer with us. An amazing man. Dave DeBusschere, what people don't, they remember him as legacies as a great Knick player on the 2 championship teams. What they don't remember about Dave DeBusschere, he was a baseball pitcher for the Chicago White Sox. He was a major league pitcher.
Wow.
If he didn't play basketball, he could have hung around and did that. He also owned Ring Magazine for a little while. We talk about boxing.
Yeah.
And remember Dave DeBusschere. He was the guy who was sitting there when Patrick Ewing's name came out, as number 1 in the lottery, and he held up the jersey, Ewing. So he was running the Knicks, for a while too. An amazing man, very close friend of Bill Bradley, who became a United States Senator.
In 1941, Tim Carver, Phillies and Mets catcher, also more famous, I think, as a sportscaster, was born in 1941, Jack.
Yeah, Tim McCarver, right, more famous as a sportscaster, but he was Steve Carlton's primary catcher. He caught Bob Gibson. So he experienced a heck of a lot in baseball.
Yeah, some great pitchers he caught for, no doubt. Yeah. And lastly, Jack, we have Melissa Belode, three-time American gold medal swimmer in 1972's Olympics, born today in 1956. 72 was a memorable Olympics, Jack, I'll tell you that.
I mean, we remember the Israeli massacre, but if we're going to talk about swimming strictly, I mean, wasn't that the year of Mark Spitz?
Mark Spitz,
the
right.
72 Olympics. Or was it? Yeah, that was yeah.
72. Yeah,
Mark
it was 72.
Spitz,
so, Jack, we end another show. I think this was one of my funnest shows that I've done so far with you. We had a great football.
Funniest shows.
One of the funnest, I should say. Not funniest. You're always funny, Jack. So, you know.
Yeah. Okay.
Two great shows a week, a row of the boxing and now the football Friday preview. We had some great guests today. Tomorrow we have our Mac and Jack sports debate show where we debate some topics. If you like to see two old guys go at it with a little bit of knowledge anyway on some sports topics, we'll have our guest, Dr. Paul Semendinger, who is a popular author, Yankees blog founder, intelligent man. He'll be on with us tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow at 8:00. And thank you all for joining us. Have a great day, Jack. Have a great day, everybody. And we'll see you tomorrow.